WisconsinEye's Campaign 2024 programming is sponsored by Wisconsin Counties Association, Nicolet National Bank, Wisconsin Hospital Association, Operating Engineers Local 139, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, the Wisconsin Laborers District Council, and North Central State's Regional Council of Carpenters. To support programs like this, please consider a tax-deductible donation at wiseye.org/donate or by texting WisCI to 44321.
Terry Schoonover of Alma is the Democratic candidate for the 29th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Terry Schoonover, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sure. Why are you running for this office? What's your campaign's key message?
Well, I guess the biggest thing would be, the Assembly District 29th runs, it's newly redrawn, and so we've got a new legislative map. It runs from Trempealeau all the way up to Prescott, over to Blair, Pigeon Falls. It's a huge geographical area. I'd say probably in the last 6.5 months I put on over 11,000 miles, just a commitment to get to as many folks as I can. The one message I'm hearing pretty consistently across the whole district, folks are really frustrated at the gridlock and how little gets done in Madison, honestly. So hopefully I'd be considered a candidate who's got a couple ideas on hopefully how to break the gridlock a little bit.
What's an example of a bill that would be a priority for you to introduce?
Probably one of the first ones I would say would be create a nonpartisan redistricting commission to draw our legislative maps. I think that's absolutely almost all the problems in my mind that we're finding right now are because of gridlock caused by gerrymandered maps. And 3 years ago I got involved with that. I was testifying at a Senate committee meeting in Madison. We wanted fair maps, and I just think I'm tickled right now that Governor Evers has signed new maps. I think it was last March, and this will be the first election with the new maps. But that kind of guarantees gridlock in my mind. Just having maps that incumbents don't have to feel, they got a chance of getting voted out of office.
So if you're elected, you'll be entering during a biennial budget year, and the state is projected to have now more than a $4 billion surplus. What would be your top two priorities for use of that surplus funding?
Well, based on all the meetings I've been attending, village, city, town board meetings, county board meetings, I would say absolutely schools. It's just such a big priority. I'm originally from Loyal, Wisconsin, up near Marshfield. Oldest of 9, we all graduated from a well-funded, well-run public school. I won't tell you how long ago that was, but I just think it's so important that our kids and our teachers and our communities have well-funded schools. The problem we got now with raising local referendums, I think there's going to be 120 some on the ballot this time. It's not working. It's just a lot of folks, a lot of school districts can't afford it.
Do you have a second priority for that surplus funding?
Roads, road maintenance. I've been to a lot of town, city council meetings. They don't have the money for even basic road maintenance. What bothers me is, what you mentioned. We've got almost a $4 billion surplus down in Madison. We don't need to spend it all, but there are so many issues right now, and I would say schools and roads are the two biggest ones. I don't understand why we're not spending that money to help these local
What about
entities.
Tax cuts, tax reforms? Is that part of your platform in any way?
It's a possibility, but personally, I just think tax cuts tend to favor the wealthy. I think folks, if they realize how many issues that we've got right now that we can solve, we should be spending more of that surplus, in my mind, on problems that we have. They've been ignored for so long now that I just think that's where our focus should be.
You mentioned K-12 education as a priority for you. What do you see as working well in education, and what do you think really needs to change?
I'd probably say I've been to a lot of school board meetings, and we've got just some really dedicated folks trying to make things work. For education to thrive, the state needs to be a good partner with the school districts. I think we've kind of dropped the ball on that. I know my opponent a couple months ago in the Buffalo County News wrote an article patting himself and the legislators on the back for passing a $300 student increase. Well, adjusted for inflation, I think for the last 10 years, they're about $3,300 behind per student. When I mentioned that to a superintendent, I won't say what district, he called this latest increase pathetic. I just think we need to do a better job of funding our public schools.
What about the state's higher education system, four-year colleges, two-year colleges, technical colleges? What does that system look like to you in the future, and where should the legislature focus?
Honestly, I think it's pretty bleak. I think we've closed, I don't know, 5 or 6 two-year campuses. You know, I don't know what, it seems to me we've waged this war on higher education in schools. I don't know why. At one point we were funded like in the top 10, 50, you know, of 50 states. We were in the top 10, and now we're what, 41st, something like that.
So you support an increase in funding for the University of Wisconsin
absolutely.
system?
It used to be our crown jewel, right? When I was growing up, I mean, it was envied in the country, and I don't know why we're ignoring it when the money's there.
What do you see as the state's largest workforce development challenge, and how would you propose to address it?
Well, I think part of it maybe is connected with the housing shortage we have. I think we should try and, you know, if there's educational subsidies for high occupation jobs, you know, we should be trying to move people into those. I think I talked to my daughter at one point. We talked about, you know, an AmeriCorps for housing, and we're not going to. We need to increase the supply, basically,
of housing.
I don't think rent controls necessarily help as much as we just need to build more units, and whether that's maybe incentivizing developers to build smaller footprint homes and rental units. That's a possibility as well. But I know there are people in the 29th Assembly District that are living out of cars. It's been ignored for a long time, and we just need to do more.
Investments in public and energy infrastructure grow our state's economy. This also provides an investment or an opportunity to invest in our state's workforce, but currently there are no requirements for hiring local workers. Would you support a state resident hiring requirement for state, local, and utility scale infrastructure investments?
I would. I guess I would want to make sure we have, you know, the people available to do that. We can't do it at you know, detriment of not getting a job done. But absolutely, if we have folks locally that are qualified, I would fully support a local initiative.
Employee classification is an issue in the construction industry. Some employers misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay them in cash off the books. This lowers costs by avoiding payroll taxes and unemployment insurance, and it puts compliant companies at a disadvantage when bidding on projects. Plus, misclassified workers may be denied minimum wage protections or overtime pay. Are you aware of this issue and what should be done?
I am. I think there are things we can do, hopefully maybe to help small business owners, either through some tax incentives to bring people on full-time. I do know I've talked to a gentleman in my hometown of Alma, a business owner who's just really struggling. When I asked him, you know, what's a big issue for you? And it's health care for his employees, which kind of gets me back into this whole thing about, you know, refusing to expand Medicaid and Badger Care to the tune of, I don't know, $1.6 billion in the last 10 years. In my mind, it's just fiscally irresponsible to not expand that when we have so much needs. Western Wisconsin, we have a healthcare desert right now. You know, up here in Eau Claire, we just closed a healthcare system. And so I just think that's a lot of money that, you know, right now we're currently the only state in the area that's not expanding. And so we're subsidizing all the surrounding states, we should be getting some of that benefit, and that's just a lot of money.
I think you already answered this question. It's related to housing and affordable rental housing being scarce. And the question was related to, do you support rent controls or building more housing units? Do you have any more to say about that?
Not really, other than I think there are things we can do to incentivize, maybe streamline some of the building rules and regulations for contractors and developers. I think that would help, but we can certainly incentivize developers to build, additionally build.
Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned healthcare. Medical systems, as you know, facing numerous headwinds in the form of inflation, workforce development, and issues around Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, resulting in fewer services, and even, as you're aware, the closure of a system in western Wisconsin. How would you propose to preserve access to care and prevent future closures?
Well, part of it really gets back to expanding badger care. I mean that's a huge amount of money, and I think last I had read, almost 90,000 people could be brought on to that. It could be expanded to 90,000 folks. So for folks who have health care, doesn't seem like a big issue, but for those 90,000, it's a pretty big issue.
Do you support increasing the Medicaid reimbursement rate for hospitals? The payments that they receive for serving people on Medicaid?
I do. And again, I think if we accept some of that federal Medicaid expansion, it's just going to make that easier for us to do that.
What about mental health care? Also a growing concern for many Wisconsinites. What are you hearing on that issue, and what are some solutions?
Well, I have heard concerns from folks on mental health. I don't have a whole lot of solutions on that at this point. I mean, I'd certainly be willing to, look into that. But I know it's an issue. I know it's an issue in 8029.
Mm-hmm. How should Wisconsin move forward on the issue of abortion?
Abortion, such a divisive issue. I would say this initially. If men were the ones getting pregnant, we wouldn't be having this issue, in my mind. I just think too many folks are they're pro-life until birth, and then not so much after that. And what I would say is we need to also be supplying a social safety net, a living minimum wage, child care, tax credits, things like that. If we do that, I think more women will choose life.
Should there be a number of weeks that are around abortion policy?
I've read, all kinds of things. I'm not an expert on that at this point. I guess I don't know enough to really offer up a well-educated. I would just say, it's a woman's right. It really is a woman's right. I don't think they should worry about government stepping in on that. I just think that, and it always I find it interesting that, people, when we go back to the COVID vaccinations, there were a lot of folks that were all wigged out about, COVID vaccine requirements, and their first comment was, my body, my choice, my body, my choice. And I just think, it's a woman's body, it's her choice. I grew up in a very strongly anti-abortion faith tradition, but I just think we absolutely should not be delving into that. I think it's a woman's right to choose.
Transportation. What are the pressing transportation needs in your district, and how important is it that these needs are addressed, and for the state to keep on schedule with the reconstruction of aging interstates and significant corridors of commerce?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, road maintenance is huge. There just isn't enough money. And of course, the prices of everything have gone up, and so budgets are being stretched. There are a lot of people frustrated at the city, village, town board level, county board level, that the state's not doing more. We've got some things that we're trying to do with agricultural roads, which helps, but people who are trying to keep the roads maintained are just really struggling, and think the state should do more.
What about the environment? PFAS and other water contaminants are a growing concern for Wisconsinites. Do you see this as an important issue, and how would you address it?
Well, it is. I used to think it was just, in Pepin County and Pierce County, it's a very big issue. But when you go and look at the number of contaminated wells in Buffalo and Trempealeau County, it's an issue there as well. I would say we need to identify where these wells are, and we need to help support ways to mitigate that, because we need clean water. We need clean drinking water. And so, again, I just think the state, we don't need to spend everything, but there's so many needs out there that we can incentivize some of these remediation strategies that we should, for some reason, in my mind, it just seems like the state's asleep at the wheel on some of this stuff. If they go out and go to a lot more of these local meetings, board, city, village meetings, they're going to find out what the needs are. And right now, they're not being met.
We're down to our final two questions.
Okay.
How would you describe the leading differences between you and your opponent?
Well, there's probably several, but I'd get it down to two, probably. I will represent and respond to every constituent in Assembly District 29, not half, not on my half or whatever. The other thing would be gerrymandered maps. And this is where I got involved 3 years ago. I will never support gerrymandered maps. Now, if there was ever an issue that my opponent could have shown some leadership and independence on, it would be fair maps. We passed a referendum in very conservative Buffalo County. Almost 70% of Republicans and Democrats said we want fair maps. My opponent, Robin Voss, told them, no, but we're gonna submit these gerrymandered maps, and they did. That's frustrating to me, because most of your constituents want fair maps. And so luckily we now have fair maps as of March, and I think in less than 3 weeks we're going to hopefully see more competitive races.
Final question. Let's say you're elected, you get this magic wand you can use in the state capitol to resolve one issue in a way that brings all people together. What's the issue?
I'm going to probably borrow a thought from my friend Steve Doyle, who's a representative in Onalaska. And I think his comment was, pass a law so that no legislators get paid until they come together and get something done. In business, they call it pay for performance. And so I just like that idea that we need to incentivize legislators to reach across the aisle. 20 years at Mayo Clinic as an emergency management coordinator, I worked with policemen and firemen, some strong-willed folks. We got stuff done because we respected each other. And I think that's key. We have to show respect. We don't see a lot of that in some of these caustic issues down in Madison. So hopefully someone who's really, truly willing to reach across the aisle.
All right. Thank you, Terry Schoonover of Alma, the Democratic candidate for the 29th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Terry Schoonover, thank you for talking with WisconsinEye.
Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate it.
This programming is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for watching.